Hello and welcome to this introductory video in the series called Marketing for Charities, brought to you by the worshipful company of Marketors. My name's Peter Rees, I'm a liveryman of the company, and it's my pleasure to be your host and your narrator for these briefings. On this slide I'm going to go through the agenda items, the points we're going to cover in this briefing. I'll start off by giving you a little bit of background and information about the Marketors Livery Company and its aims. I'll then talk about my background, qualifications and credentials for creating and delivering this series of briefings. I'll go on then to discuss the aims for this project as I've conceived them and talk a little about the role of marketing, first in a commercial sense and then looking at ways in which charities are significantly different. I'll then spend a few minutes talking about the unique qualities of charities and the sorts of help that we might be able to provide for you, talk about the next steps as you progress through this series, and finish with some concluding remarks. If you would like to find out more about the Marketors Livery Company, then please visit our website at the address shown here, www.marketors.org. I thought I'd start off by giving you a bit of a background about the Marketors Livery Company, as many people are not familiar with these organisations and their aims and objectives. The worshipful company of Marketors is a City of London livery company for senior marketing professionals. Livery companies have been in existence for many hundreds of years and were created originally to govern a particular trade or profession in the City of London, maintaining quality and standards. The Marketors Company is one of the more modern livery companies. It was founded about 40 years ago and earned its Royal Charter in 2010. Most livery companies have broadly similar aims tailored to the trade or profession that they represent. The aims of the Marketors Livery Company start off with the first, which is to actively support the Mayoralty and the City of London Corporation. Our second aim is to promote marketing education and the benefits of the profession of marketing to those in the city, the livery and beyond. The third aim is to give back both financially and in kind and make a contribution to the development of marketing, and that's one of the reasons that I've prepared and developed this series of briefings, particularly targeted at charities. And then finally, the last aim is to bring in and retain members, foster fellowship and plan and foster succession. And as I said on the previous slide, if you'd like more information about the worshipful company of Marketors, please do visit our website at www.marketors.org. Let me start by giving you an introduction to this project, starting with my credentials and qualifications. As you can see from this slide, I've got quite a lot of business experience, both at the UK and then at European and in fact at international level. My last full-time job, I was Vice President of Marketing for a global publicly quoted media company based in Paris. Well, we sold that business in 2006, I returned to the UK, and since then I've held a number of part-time academic roles which you see are listed here. And apart from the pleasure of teaching some very bright young people, I also am able to keep up to date with the latest thinking, theory and best practice in marketing, some of which I'll be sharing with you during the course of these briefings. Finally, as you can see here, I've had quite a lot of experience working with charities and charitable organisations, and I've delivered over 200 days of marketing support and advice on behalf of the worshipful company of Marketors outreach programme. And I'm also a former trustee of 2 charities, so I have quite a lot of experience on how to apply marketing best practice in a practical and pragmatic way for charities. Let me now turn to some more information about this project, starting with its aims. I conceived this project with 3 specific aims. The first is to provide a series of practical video briefings for charities using proven marketing approaches that are both practical and pragmatic and take account of the resources and capabilities of charitable organisations. The next aim is to provide advice in 4 specific areas of marketing planning, and they are analysis, strategy, implementation and control, and these shall be part of the topics covered in future briefings in this series. The final aim is, in certain circumstances and subject to availability, to provide pro bono support and advice to help charities as they develop and implement their marketing plans via the Marketors Company outreach team. I'd now like to move on to the next section where we shall discuss the role of marketing. I'd like to start this section by asking you a question. So pause the video and take a few moments to consider, how would you define the role of marketing? Now, generally speaking, when I ask non-marketing people this question, I get one of about 4 or 5 answers. The first one, and the first thing people often say, is that marketing is synonymous with advertising. Well, it is certainly true that advertising and communications generally is a major part of marketing. And since the 1950s, in Madison Avenue in New York, advertising has been a major part of the activity of many marketing departments. The next answer that people often give is they think that marketing is synonymous with selling. Well, in fact, the two are slightly different. Selling is about taking the things, the products and services that your organisation produces and taking them to the target market. Marketing is about understanding what the target wants and then making products and service to satisfy those wants and needs. Some people think that marketing is the same thing as public relations. Well, public relations is an important part of marketing communications, and it is very important to get your messages across to your target stakeholder groups, but it is just one facet of marketing and one facet of marketing communications. Some people think that marketing is all about creating branded merchandise, and I'm thinking here about things like key rings or mouse mats or golf umbrellas. And cynical friends of mine, actually quite rudely, refer to marketing as the colouring in department, though I try not to let them hurt my feelings too much. The final attributes that the more cynical attribute to marketing is the dark arts of persuasion and spin, and I think this has perhaps come around from some of the adverse press we've seen over recent years in the area of government media relations. So on these previous slides we've seen some facets and some areas that marketing is involved in. Let's now turn to a definition of marketing to help us understand a more cohesive and holistic definition of the marketing activity. I'll start with a definition of marketing that I always use to introduce the topic to my university students. Now, I will say up front that this does not exactly relate to charities. This is a definition of marketing that's particularly relevant to commercial profit-making organisations. It comes from the Chartered Institute of Marketing, who give the following definition. They say that marketing is the management process responsible for anticipating, identifying and satisfying customer wants and needs profitably. And as you can see there's 2 particular areas where it may not be exactly relevant to the operations of a charity. First of all, they talk about the concept of a customer, somebody from whom you make money, and secondly, they talk about generating profit, which is not always the aim of many charitable and not-for-profit organisations. So let's see how we might develop this definition to something that's more relevant and more meaningful to charities. So let's start with a little unpacking of that definition and think about the concept of satisfying the needs and wants through an exchange process. And this was a concept brought to the marketing profession by Professor Philip Kotler, who's a very noted and very famous and very highly regarded American academic. So he says that marketing is all about meeting the wants and needs through a process of exchange. Let's see how we might develop that idea a little further on the next slide. So rather than just the pure concept of making profit, let's think about the concept of exchanging value, because what we're trying to do in a charity is to exchange value in a way that satisfies the wants and needs of both parties. Now, in a commercial organisation it would be the buyer and the seller, but in a charity it'd be what I would call the giver and the beneficiary. And there are 3 models of this value exchange with which you will be familiar. So let's have a look at those first. The first value exchange process appeared in society thousands of years ago, and that was the barter process, where people traded products or services one for the other. So you could swap a basket of eggs for a basket of apples. Whatever you found of value, you would exchange with somebody having another product, and both parties' wants and needs are satisfied. The second model really came about following the development of money and currency. And these are the commercial transactions which we all experience day to day in our everyday lives. And this is the commercial exchange of money for goods and services. And then finally we have this model, which appears from charities, where a service, a product, in this case it's a medicine, is given to a beneficiary, a patient in this case, which mutually satisfies the wants and needs of both the charitable organisation, who is put in place to serve and, in this case, heal sick people, and the beneficiary who is healed by the work of that charity. So those are the three exchange models: bartering, commercial trade, and then finally charity marketing. So this being the case, let's see how we might adopt our definition of marketing to be more specifically relevant to charities. So here I've restated and developed the original definition I showed you from the Chartered Institute of Marketing and adjusted the wording to make it more relevant and pertinent to charities. Now I'm sorry it's a little bit verbose. It's something I created about 7 years ago, and what I'm saying here is charity marketing is the management process of anticipating, identifying and satisfying beneficiaries, donors and other stakeholders' wants and needs with an exchange of value that mutually satisfies all parties. So I'm sorry it's a bit verbose and a bit long-winded, but I think that really encapsulates all the different stakeholders in a business. Still has the underlying process of anticipating, identifying and satisfying beneficiaries or wants and needs and donors and other stakeholders, but not with a commercial exchange, but with an exchange of value that satisfies the wants and needs of all the parties. I'll now move on to look at the final section of this briefing, which is a statement and an understanding of what makes charities so unique, and in my explanation here, why charities are in fact magic. I've said here that charities are magic because they achieve what no commercial organisation could ever hope to achieve. And let's look at what those things actually are. Think then about the characteristics of a charity, a worthy charity, perhaps the one that you're working for. This charity can achieve 3 truly amazing things. They attract money from donors who give it without any thought or expectation of reward or recognition, and often without actually knowing who the final beneficiaries will actually be in any level of detail. This shows a level of kindness, generosity, morality that is almost never found in normal commercial business operations. The next piece of magic is the fact that charities are able to generate a huge amount of support from the literally hundreds of thousands of volunteers who freely give their time and effort to support the work of the charity. Truly outstanding. The final stakeholder group, of course, is the beneficiaries, those who receive the services of the charity, often at times of greatest need, often unasked for, and almost always at no cost. Which is the reason that I believe that charities are in fact magic. Now, very often when I'm approached and asked for advice and assistance by charities, they ask me to look at one of the following areas typically: communications, branding, digital marketing, which is very popular nowadays, almost always fundraising, service development, recruitment of volunteers or staff or donors or sponsors, developing marketing collateral, and occasionally copywriting. And all these are very worthy areas, and I'm going to cover them all in subsequent briefings. But the point I just make for you here is, rather than pick about 1 or 2 of these in a piecemeal fashion, it is almost always more worthwhile to take a more holistic view, step back for a second, and think about the marketing plan that you're trying to execute. And a well-written marketing plan will, by definition, cover all or most of these areas according to the needs of that particular charity. So for the rest of this briefing series, I'm going to talk about things on the right-hand side of this screen, which is marketing planning, which by its very nature will cover the areas on the left. So those are going to be the topics we're going to cover in the future briefings in this series, which will be all about marketing planning for charities. If on the other hand you have any questions about this video specifically, or if you'd like to give me any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. In which case, please email me at peter.rees@gmail.com and I'll respond as soon as I can upon receipt of your message. Let me leave you then with this concluding remark, which is a quotation from one of my favourite scientists, who is the British biologist Charles Darwin, who wrote the theory of the evolution of the species. Now, Charles Darwin is often misquoted. People always think that Charles Darwin used the phrase the survival of the fittest. In fact, that wasn't what he said. What he actually said was the following: it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And it's my hope that through these briefings, I will help you to position yourself in that third category. It just remains for me to thank you very much for your time. I hope you found this briefing a useful introduction into the programme, and I hope that you'll be joining me for later videos in this series. So thank you for your time, good luck, good marketing, and goodbye for now.